community, mostly aligned to Ulster Volunteer Force. Today, for those of you that don't know, is what has been referred to historically as British Empire Day. Unfortunately, or sadly, that is in demise, so we no longer celebrate British Empire Day for probably obvious reasons. Historically, it has evolved into Commonwealth Day, and then laterally, to celebrate the Queen's official birthday, moved to her day in June. But it's still regarded in some respects as originally being Queen Victoria's birthday and having the obvious link to the First World War. The poignancy is that while the day is in demise, those that gave their sacrifice at the First World War hopefully are not. Historically, particularly in communities like this, we are drawn to commemorate those that we have a direct connection to, and by that what I mean usually conventionally the 36th Ulster Division and the 10th and 16th Irish. However, we have embarked on a programme within ACT that you'll hear more about from Professor John Brewer in trying to commemorate those less often remembered categories of people and nations that did pay the ultimate sacrifice themselves. Rather than steal the thunder of our two key speakers who are instrumental in the programme, I'll first of all hand over to Professor John Brewer from the Mitchell Institute at Queen's University, and then to Philip Orr, the well-known local historian. Thank you.
Thank you very much, William. It really is a privilege to be here because I feel very personally associated with this. I had a great uncle who was killed in the last 6 weeks of the First World War. My father was named after him when he served, and he served also in the same regiment as him in the Second World War. My brother is named after him, and I'm very proud to say that my grandson is named after him. So there's been a Charles Brewer in every generation, and we honour that great uncle's sacrifice. And so when the Mitchell Institute was asked to be involved in this project, I was very enthusiastic. The project originated with a London-based think tank called British Future that uses the lens of the First World War to help young British Muslims understand what Muslim identity can mean for them today, and particularly how Britain's Muslim community has been associated with events that are truly foundational to the British national narrative. And they were interested in coming over to Northern Ireland to see how the lens of the First World War can be used also to address loyalist identity today, and of course the identity of local Muslims in Northern Ireland. And so the Mitchell Institute got involved in putting on a workshop, first of all with local Muslims, and then with local loyalists, and then bringing them together so that they could share something of what the First World War means to loyalists, and Muslims could understand how they too are associated with the honour and sacrifice that we commemorate when we honour the First World War. And it was not anticipated that a wall mural would be painted. But if you could have seen the dynamics between the two groups on that night when we brought them together, you will appreciate how both groups wanted to do something that might cement a greater awareness and a greater understanding between the two communities. And this wall mural, I hope, will stand as a permanent testimony for the beginnings of a new understanding and a new relationship between local Muslims and local loyalists. And so the Mitchell Institute is very proud to be at this launch, and we wish ACT well in the development and launch of this wall mural, because it does speak testimony, I think, not only to today, but right back to 1914, 1918. So I welcome you here, and on behalf of Queen's University and the Mitchell Institute, I welcome this wall mural. And having said more words than I intended, I'll now hand you over to Philip Orr.
Okay, thank you very much, John, and thanks, William. And really, I just don't want to say too much, but maybe just to bring a little bit of history into the proceedings this day. When I began to be, I suppose, a military historian, I really began on these streets of the Shankill, interviewed some of my very first veterans back in the 1980s, and became very aware of just how many homes, indeed on both sides of the gate down there, both Falls and Shankill, how many lives were affected, how many homes were broken when news came through from the sufferings and the sacrifice on the battlefields of the Western Front. But what I also have become highly aware of, and I think is a great benefit to us all, is just how massive an event the war actually was. When I was out in Bangladesh at a conference, I discovered there that many people had parents, grandparents, great-grandparents who had taken part in the war. I discovered that well over 1 million Indians had, because Bangladesh at that time was part of India, over 1 million Indians had participated in the war, and they came from every kind of imaginable background in that huge and diverse country: Sikhs, Hindu, Muslim, and many other faiths. But it's not just a story of India, though that is incredibly important. It's a story that spans the world. Many of us are very aware, and some of us have actually visited Gallipoli, where, again, in a horrendous battle in 1915, there were troops from widely across the British and French empires taking part, and the Ottoman Empire as well, of course, which was soon to disappear in just shortly after the First World War. But from Canada, from Newfoundland, from the West Indies, from Nigeria, as I've already mentioned, from South Asia, from Australia, New Zealand, Malaysia, and many other parts of the world, men came in order to take part in that war. And I think it's of great benefit to us to recognise just how diverse, how huge an event it actually was. Just to conclude, what I want to do is look a little bit with you at the mural itself. Obviously, you will recognise the role of a recruitment poster in the middle of the mural, and of course recruitment posters all across the different empires would have had different themes and different stories. You may look up here in the top left and see soldiers from the West Indies Regiment. Who amongst us knew about that story, or knew anything at all about comparable stories? You will see perhaps a slightly more familiar face there in a Gurkha hat, coming from the area we now know as Nepal. And of course, a very famous example of the sepoy. Sepoy is a word for an Indian soldier who received the Victoria Cross, and you can scrutinise those at your leisure. Also down on the left we have here a Sikh fighter, actually a Sikh who's actually involved with the Royal Flying Corps, and of course with an irony and a meaning that perhaps never intended. When the photograph was taken, or it was chosen for the mural, you'll see the word Manchester actually mentioned on that mural. A little reminder to us of the pressing importance in our world today of finding ways to deal with peace and justice, with the many conflicts that are there. And we think of those who suffered just a couple of days ago, and our hearts break. Over on the far side of the mural, you'll see again the familiar stories, perhaps to many, of Canada, New Zealand, Newfoundland. I'm glad to see also at the bottom another group that very often gets left out of the picture: women. Women as nurses. You'll see an example there, and a couple of examples, in fact. So, just a little summing up to say that we know that Belfast was hit very, very badly by the casualties of the First World War, and that many went and showed great courage in that context. But we also are opening our minds just a little bit today, and permanently, as John said, through this mural, to the fact that we have many, many other aspects to the war to think about, and it does include very often those who are more recent visitors to our shores, who are more recent citizens of our country, as well as those of us who trace our ancestry back here in the longer term. So that's all from me, and over to William.
Thank you, Philip. Okay, folks, we'll not keep you too much longer. I'm just going to conclude by saying something about the process. So we haven't spoken in any great detail, but both sets of communities did what you'd refer to as a single identity workshop, and then came together in a joint one. And it's fair to say it was very enlightening to both of us, especially about our own background and our own history of the war. And one of those, from a loyalist perspective, but also from a Muslim, was at the Battle of Somme, the only cavalry charge was carried out by the 20th Deccan Horse Brigade. And this was quite enlightening to both groups, because, as Philip had pointed out, it's probably fair to say that Muslims then died side by side with those within the 36th Ulster Division and the 10th and 16th Division. So, last but not least, I just need to thank some people. So, first of all, I'd like to thank Professor John BREWER for setting up the project and for hosting us at Queen's University. I'd like also to thank Philip Orr, who has played a significant role, and some experiences you've heard from him. But in their absence, I'd like to thank the two Muslim facilitators, AVAES and JAHAN, who came from British First in London to travel to be with us on more than one occasion. And then lastly, locally, can't be here today, he's at university studying, but I'd like to thank Stephen Pollock, the coordinator of the ACT initiative here in the Shankill, and those ACT volunteers that participated in the programme. And then last but not least, we can't get away with this, although I'm not sure there's any of them here, but we'd like to thank the Housing Executive for their expediency in actually paying for the mural. Because from the workshops, what emerged was the ACT participants who took part immediately designed this mural, and we were able to apply the Housing Executive to fund it. So on behalf of the ACT Initiative again, thank you all for turning out today, and feel free to convene now at our office on the corner of Northumberland Street when there's sandwiches and buns for anyone there. Thank you.
Part of an education process.
He does it, and the
organisations, the British government let then we won the battles, and we left off each one. There were no nations really. There was a girl, a woman on